So, what did you think about the State of the Union? Because you actually watched it, right?
I did. Um, I'm a Democrat. I voted for Biden. Um, it was frustrating for me. Like people care about things that are, unique and important to them. Obviously, Afghanistan's not unique and important to everybody like it is to me and you, but it is to me and you. So for me, I was frustrated that he didn't bring it up again, second State of the Union in a row, that he did not talk about Afghanistan at all. And it's frustrating because it's like it just signifies to me that like clearly he just wants everybody to forget about this. Like he botched it, whether or not it was his, if you think it was his fault, he was the president at the time. It was a botched evacuation. We left hundreds of thousands of people behind. A lot of them are getting systematically murdered. Um, and he just wants to sweep it under the rug instead of saying anything about it. And I was trying to think of it from like an Afghan's point of view. You know, whoever was watching last night, if they could watch, if they were allowed to watch, like I'm sure as an Afghan, they just wanted to hear something from him that's like, hey, I see you, I hear you, like we're not done with this. He kept saying, let's finish the job. And, I'm just thinking in my head, like, okay, well, yeah, let's finish the job in Afghanistan. Um, so it was frustrating for me.
Yeah, and I don't watch the States of the Union anymore for that precise reason. I know that they're not going to touch on Afghanistan because it has already become a stain on our country. And the problem with that is, well, there are lots of problems with that, but I want to talk first about the one that I feel like is probably close to your heart because you are a veteran. You were there. You served next to people who were there and who were impacted by Afghanistan. And so there's this tremendous sense of moral injury that we haven't been able to get into in an episode yet, but that's really um, it's afflicting our veterans. I mean, I see it in my direct messages all the time. People who wonder if their interpreter is still alive because they can't get a hold of them. People who wonder if their interpreter is going to be alive even when they do know who they are and where they are and they're waiting on an SIV. Or just people who have really intense periods of their life spent in that country trying to bring it back from the brink and then to watch it just return. It's really devastating. And I mean, do you think that's part of the reason that it's hard for you to watch it right now?
Sure. And I think what a lot of Afghanistan veterans were struggling with, when Kabul fell or when Afghanistan fell was like, was my service wasted? Was my time there wasted? Did my friend die there for nothing? And those are like, tough things to think about and to comprehend. But um, in my head, like my time there definitely wasn't wasted. I don't think any of our service members' time there was wasted because, you think about where that country was before we entered it, the Taliban had control. You think about where it is now, again, the Taliban's in control, but there was 19, 20 years there where, they had elections. People had freedom to vote for whoever they wanted to represent themselves. Women weren't being systematically raped. Ethnic minorities weren't being systematically killed. 20 years of free Afghanistan. So, that's what I try to tell myself. But yeah, it's tough to think about.
And that's, I think, what you and I right now and everybody that we talk to on the podcast is still trying to do is to create maybe like a groundswell of support so that those efforts aren't in vain because I talk to people every single day who are stuck there who still feel those things. They feel that they were educated and it wasn't for nothing. The women that I talk to who are sitting in their houses and most can't do anything, but they haven't totally given up hope. They don't think that the Taliban will be there forever. And I think that's what everybody who's still involved in this effort is hoping for, is that we can kind of regain some of the things that we did work towards, or that we can bring things back. But it's just very frustrating to watch. I was thinking of the reasons that it makes me sad that we're not talking about this. And it's not just, all of our special immigrant visa people left behind. It's the people who couldn't even apply for the special immigrant visa program. So I've talked to people who, like a woman, for instance, who was an airport security specialist. She worked on an American contract, or for an American contractor, but her contract was paid by the government of Afghanistan, which meant that she was not eligible for an SIV. Who paid the government of Afghanistan's everything? That would be primarily the US and foreign entities, because the government of Afghanistan couldn't sustain itself. And so this tiny little, detail kept this woman, who already is in a precarious position as a woman in Afghanistan, as somebody who was known for having worked at the airport. Now she's screwed. There's no one coming to save her. She can't get an SIV. She can't get P1, P2. And we've already, addressed what's afflicting our SIV applicants in our first episode with Jeff Faniff, and what's happening with our priority 1 and priority 2 candidates, which we talked about in episode 2 with Amy. These are things that we have the ability to fix it. And instead, we're just not talking about it. We're sweeping it under the rug, and most of the populace is fine with that, because we do have a lot of problems here that are in desperate need of addressing. And we do have a lot of conflicts. It's very demoralizing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously me and you see it in our email inboxes every day and our Instagram inboxes every single day. I mean, people are just like so desperate and in horrible situations. And like I said, I think at the minimum, they just wanted to hear him say something like, we still see you guys. We hear you. We're not done. We're going to finish the job. And he did it. And to me, that it's pathetic, I guess, is the best word for me to use.
Yeah, it's very dangerous too for future conflicts. If we ever are trying to work with the populace, or, have people help us, how are we going to do that when we have this horrible track record of treating our allies just terribly? Right. This is not the first conflict that we've done this in. And, these people, they are humans. And I think we've forgotten that at some point. We've forgotten how many humans we left, and each of them has a story. And I think that's what's so important here, is bringing those stories out so that our listeners can have the experiences that you and I have had, with getting to know the people of Afghanistan and caring about them. So at least there are people who are doing something and trying to keep it at the forefront. But I think you're right. I think that Biden needed to mention it just in one sentence. That's all it would have taken, one sentence.
Yeah. Right. And you're exactly right. I mean, the message that it sends to our future allies is horrible. I mean, we're pretty much saying, hey, come fight shoulder to shoulder with us for 20 years. We'll make you a whole bunch of empty promises that will protect you if anything happens, and then we're going to leave you behind.
Yep. And we've talked, I know that our listeners haven't been able to see this one yet, but we have some really unfortunate stories about what's happened to the people who did fight shoulder to shoulder with us, and what they're having to do now to make ends meet. And that should be next week. But,